trying to make it.
All right, young scholars, I just finished the grading for Excel Homework 4, so your scores are up. And I just posted the solution file for you to look through to have for your notes for the midterm. So today, we're going to go through the inventory and raises file here. Click the three dots, download original file. While you're doing that, I want to point out again that Excel Homework 5 here is the second half of what we did on Wednesday. The pulling the PAP, the numbers, and the last letter out. And then instead of doing football, you guys are doing baseball for the first team, second team, their scores, etc., and then a possible 5 extra credit points for using the count if to determine how many games the Yankees won. Like I said, you should get the number 7 if you do that correctly. On Wednesday, and I'll touch on this after we go through the inventory and raises, is a mandatory meeting. We're going to go through the 3 Excel things you have to do for the group project, and you're going to pick your groups. So we'll start with the inventory and raises workbook today. If you download it and open it, you'll notice there is an inventory analysis worksheet and a raises worksheet. So we're going to start within the raises worksheet where we have 3 questions for it. First, we're asked to calculate the raise if you have $40,000 a year plus a 5% raise. So to find out your new salary. The second question asked us, what is the raise if you go from $40,000 this year to $45,000 next year? And then the last question asked us to calculate the percentage in our drop-up pay. Some places they'll pay you more in the summer than they do the rest of the year. So in that example, it says you're currently making $13.22 in the summer, but your pay drops to $11.22 on Friday. What percentage did your pay drop by? So the first question, calculate your raise by 40,000, or excuse me, calculate your raise of 5% on 40,000 is fairly simple to calculate. We do equals 40,000 times 1.05. The 1 represents our 40,000 that we're already making, and the 0.05 represents that added 5% raise. So it's 40% times 1.05. And then when we hit enter, we should end up with 42,000. So that's fairly simple. The next 2, however, require us to do a little more thinking, or a little more work, if you will. So we first take our new pay minus our old pay, and then divide it by the old pay. So 45,000 minus 40,000 divided by 40,000. So current minus old divided by old. And you'll see we'll do the same thing with the last. So we hit enter here, we should get 12.5% as our raise increase, which is pretty good. Then we do the same thing here. Our current pay, $13.22 minus, and then divide by the current pay. But we get a random number here, 0.15122. So we click back in, we right click, we select format cells, and we make it a percentage. And it's 15.13%. Or you could have chose to use the number pane here and select percentage from the options on the drop down here. So next we're going to go through this inventory analysis. So initially homework 5 was going to be basically something like this, but with 100 products instead of 10. And I was like, nah, it's a little too involved. I'll just do the split up of the two strings from last week. So, but first, you'll notice the column here, unit cost and sales price. We're asked to calculate both the max and the min for them. So we do equals max, open parentheses, highlight our entire range of cells, and we end up with our max being correct. It should be this highest amount, Elon Musk. We click back in, we can auto fill over. And again, our max represents the maximum unit per sales price there. Then we do the same thing for the min, equals min, open parentheses, highlight our range of cells. Our lowest cost is this one down the bottom here, $19.99. So we click back in and auto fill over. It gives us $49.99. Well, how come? Well, that's because that is the minimum in the unit sales price column. So the unit cost is what a company will pay for something, what they purchase it for. And then the unit sales price is what they charge you for it. And that's how they make their money. Average on hand, obviously we went over that last week, is how many products they have on hand. Unit sales per year is how much of those products they sell each year. You'll notice again, we have more yellow highlights. This time we're asked for average, min, and max for these columns. So we do equals average, open parentheses. We highlight the range G2 through G11. We close the parentheses. When we hit enter, we have a divide by zero error. That's because there's nothing in these cells yet. So we click back in. We auto through fill. Went too far. There we go. We auto fill through K where our yellow highlight ends. Then we do the same for the minimum. We do equals min, highlight J2 through J11 for our range of cells. We click back in and auto fill through. Then we do the same for max. Since we're not dividing by zero with the min or max, it simply gives us $0, because technically that's all that's represented right now, because we have no information in that column. So you see down at the bottom, some of these columns provide you with what the calculation is. So for your cost of average inventory, you're going to multiply your unit cost times your average on hand. So our unit cost is here in column C. multiplied by the average on hand, which is there in column E. So when we hit enter, we have an answer a little under 2,500. You'll notice that the average, min, and max all provide that number. But when we click back in and auto fill down, our average, min, and max are now all different. For the annual sales, we multiply unit sales price times average unit sales per year. So it's column D, the unit sales price, multiplied by column F, the average unit sales per year. So if you see a slash like this, it might mean per and not divide by. So this unit sales / year means unit sales per year. We click enter. We get our little under 30,000. You'll see that average, min, and max all show that number. But when we click back in and autofill the formula down, now we get all different average, min, and max. It's based on our 10 answers. Then in column I, we calculate our costs of goods sold, which is sometimes referred to as COGS, COGS, which tells us to calculate unit cost times average unit sales per year. So unit cost is in column C, multiplied by our average unit sales per year in column F. When we hit enter, we have an answer, a little under 15,000. And again, our average, min, and max all reflect that one number because that's all we have. So we click back in, auto fill down, and now we have a correct average, min, and max. Now those have all been multiplications so far. The annual gross profit, however, in column J, is annual sales minus cost of goods sold. So we do equals H2 for our annual sales minus I2 for our cost of goods. We have 15,000. Notice average, min, and max all represent that one number because that's all we have. So we click back in and auto fill down to correctly give us our average, min, and max. Next, we're asked for our gross margin ratio, which is annual gross profit divided by annual sales per unit. Anytime you have a ratio, it should be set up in percentage. So it is simply our J2 for the annual gross profit divided by our H2, our annual sales per unit. We hit enter, we have 50%. If you notice, instead of 50%, it shows 50 cents for our average, min, and max. We click back in, we auto fill down. Okay, those are all percentages. However, our average, min, and max are not. So we select all three of them. We select format cells, and we change them from currency to percentage to get the right answers. Then we're asked to calculate our markup based on cost. And that formula is unit sales price minus unit cost divided by unit cost. So the markup is basically the percentage of profit, if you will, that a company gets, which is why they will usually mark up the cost of something. So, for example, they might have a soda at a fast food place for $3. The cup itself probably cost them 10 cents, And the syrup might cost them $50 for a entire package of it. So it only basically takes them 17 cups for them to make a profit. So we do equals, open parentheses, D2 to represent our unit sales price, minus C2 to represent our unit cost, divided by C2, which represents our unit cost. We hit enter, 100%. That means that for that specific product, the company is charging twice as much to you that they paid for it. And that's how companies make profit. We click back into that cell, we auto fill down. Other companies like Walmart would do something like this with their 25%. They have a little bit of markup, but their goal is to get you to buy a ton of products to make up for that. So you'll notice here the next columns all say total above them. So we're going to push down to M12. We're going to select our auto sum button here, the sideways M, to give us equal sum. And then we're going to highlight M2 through M11. So this way it's going to total whatever information we put in those cells. We hit enter and we have $0 because nothing is there yet. We click back into that cell and we autofill across all the way over to V12, which is the last column that we need to complete. So the reason we're doing this is because we're asked for totals for many of these. Now we already have our cost of average inventory in column G. So we do equals G2. We have our first answer. We click back in. White plus turns to black plus. We auto fill down. So now we have our total cost of average inventory there. And we do the same with our total annual gross profit. We already have our gross profit in J. So we click equals J2, enter, auto fill down. So it just copies everything from J so we can total it up. Same thing for total cost of goods. You'll recall we calculated cost of goods sold here in column I. So we just do equals I2, enter, click back in that cell, white plus to black plus, auto fill down. So this way we have our total cost of goods sold. Same thing with annual sales. That was in column H. So we do equals H2, click back in, and auto fill down. Now we have our total for all of them. Now, in column Q, we are asked to find the percentage of our total annual sales. We do that by taking each product's annual sales here and dividing it by the total. So for the first one, we do equals P2 divided by P12. However, the total annual sales never changes. So we make P12 an absolute. $sign before P, $sign before 12, and we get 6% there. Auto fill down. And you'll notice one specific product there is most of our sales. However, you notice the total gives us $1. So we click Format Cells, change currency to percentage, and it'll say 100%. Or you could select percentage from the drop down here and the number pane. So next, we're asked to increase our unit cost by 5%, increase our sales price by 3%. So we do just like we did with our first question in the raises. We do equals. Our unit cost was in column C times 1.05 to represent that 5% increase. We hit enter, we have an answer, we auto fill down, and we get our total below. Then for the unit sales price increase by 3, our unit sales price was in column D. So we do D2 times 1.03. Now it's 0.3 in this instance because we are only doing 3%, not 5%. So we click enter, click back into the cell, auto fill down. Now we have our total. Now the last one is a little harder because it asks us to decrease by 1% the average unit sales per year. So you can do this one of two ways. So that information is in column F. So we do F2. And you could either do F2 minus F2 times 0.01, or you could simply do F2 times 0.99 to represent that decrease of 1%. So when you click enter, you notice that these are not set up as currency. So we right click, format cells, currency, okay. Or you could again do it from the number pane here, select currency from the drop down. This way, when we click back in and auto fill down, now they're all currencies. And we don't have to worry about doing every single one of them. However, based on those 3 changes, we now need to calculate our company's new total company annual sales and new annual gross profit. So for the new annual sales, we do equals our unit sales price times our average unit sales per year. We click enter, we click back in and auto fill down. So now we have $48 million in sales compared to 47 before our minor changes to the costs here. Now for the gross profit, we have to take our sales minus our unit cost times our average unit sales per year. So we do equals U2 minus, open parenthesis, unit cost with the increase, our new unit cost times our average unit sales per year that changed. So we click enter, we have a new answer, we auto fill down, our new gross profit is a little over 24 million compared to our previous. There's not too much of a change there. But again, that's because we just did 1%, 3%, and 5% with our changes. So are there any questions on that? Like I said, I kind of went through it a little quickly because there's no homework associated with it. But primarily, it's just to show you again how to use the auto sum, the changes based on an increase in percentage or a decrease in percentage, and to remind you how to do average, min, and max. And as you see, most of the formulas have the calculation right below for you guys to utilize. Okay, so if there are no questions on that, like I said, I put the solution file or homework 4 up. On Wednesday is going to be a mandatory meeting for everybody. So like half the class has been doing this by Cronus, just watching these previously recorded videos and doing what they need to do. But what we're going to do on Wednesday, let's see, come on, scroll down. The last class meeting of this course on 5/6, you and 2 group members in your team are going to do a presentation on your group project. So there's going to be 3 Excel problems that you do. Then you're going to be scored on formatting, formulas, and your assumptions. The presentation itself is going to be the group, and you give a 10-minute presentation where you just basically tell us which one of the 3 problems you did. Your group member does the same, your other group member does the same. And then you just tell us what kind of issues you may have had when doing these 3 problems. So you could submit it one of 2 ways, either all 3 worksheets inside one workbook, or each as an individual workbook is fine. If you put together a PowerPoint for that presentation for the 10 minutes, you could submit that as well. But that's not until much later in the semester. We're just going to do these problems in class on Wednesday and pick your groups. So this way, you have plenty of time to fix this up. So the first problem is to balance your check. And then there's all sorts of instructions. So one of the issues you might have as you're going through this, let's say you copy and paste this. You might have the same issue I had with the assumptions, where it thinks that these numbers are string, so you have to go in and type them yourself. And you could spend a minute or 2 talking about that as an issue. The second problem is a mortgage calculator with its instructions here. And the last one is the cost benefit analysis problem. And like I said, we will literally do these 3 problems in class on Wednesday after you pick your groups. And like I said, if I go too quick with them, you could always go back and watch the recording. Each one of you would do one of the 3 problems in the 3 groups. Let me see. How many are in this class? I think the other class only had 26. Okay, so there's only 26 in this section as well. So there'll be 8 groups of 3, and then one group will only be 2 members then, because there's 26. So like I said, we will go through, we will do the checkbook on Wednesday. Then we'll do the mortgage calc. Then we'll do the cost benefit analysis. And each person will do one of these problems by themselves and then jot down, any kind of issues they had, problems while doing that. And then the 3 group members, except for that one group that's only going to have 2 people, will come together and put together a 10-minute presentation. You tell everybody, oh, okay, Tommy did the checkbook, Johnny did the mortgage calculator, and Rose did the cost benefit analysis. And then you each go through and tell us any issues that you encountered while completing those exercises. So each one of you should have at least one that you could talk about in order to get through 10 minutes. So, like I said, for the checkbook, trying to copy and paste the table of info might be one of the issues you talk about. And then you talk about how you solved it, etc. And that could probably easily get you through 2 minutes. So that's why there's no, Excel file to download or anything, because we're going to create it from scratch on Wednesday. So are there any questions on that or on what we just went through? Again, as always, I'll pop up the recording so you could look back and watch it as you need to. No questions on that or the group stuff we'll do on Wednesday. If before class on Wednesday you come up with who you want in your 3-person group, go ahead and email me. That's perfectly fine. So what I do is I click this groups tab and I'll set up a place for you and your group members on here, and you can message back and forth and set up whatever you got to do, your group chat, your group text, whatever you're going to do. All right, well, if there are no questions, that's all I had prepared to discuss today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you on Wednesday.